So let's face it, guys, a lot of people in America right now are facing a gambling problem. They're gambling every day on sports. They're at the casino every weekend. They're blowing a bunch of money. And guys, this is getting in the way of people's personal finances. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to talk about it in this video. So let's go.
Back when I was a sophomore in college, I was criminally addicted to sports betting and sports gambling. It got pretty bad at a point where my bookie was like, listen, I think you're wagering a lot and I'm really worried about you, because he was also my friend too. So it gets kind of weird having your bookie as your friend. And he's like, the past year that you've been betting under me, you've wagered over $200,000. $200,000. That's a house. But obviously, if you know how betting works, it's just the amount wagered. The point being, it was a serious problem. At the same time, sports cards were rising. There was like some reports about LeBron collecting his own cards as an investment. I took sports cards as my way of gambling. Now the problem is I'm spending too much money on sports cards. What's a better use of my time and money? Why don't I create something I love and I can wear? Now I present you the first collection.
So that led nicely into an ad there. Nice smooth transition, if you ask me. But man, the problem at hand here, especially for people in their early 20s, is sports gambling. Younger men in their early 20s can't stop sports gambling. It's insane. Every single day, people are betting on basketball. When there's not basketball, there's football. When there's not football, there's women's tennis. There's hockey. There's this. There's that. You're now all of a sudden betting at 3 a.m. on, freaking cricket or something, right? This problem gets worse and worse. You start off with, the more mainstream sports, then all of a sudden you're betting for freaking women's softball in Brazil or something, right? I don't even know if they have women's softball in Brazil, but man, it's a problem. And again, younger men, early 20s, you gotta stop sports gambling, or at least limit it to once a week or something, or just don't do it at all. Do you like losing money? I mean, come on, what the heck is going on here? And he said he got into trading cards, or I guess, baseball cards, basketball cards, sport cards as a form of gambling. Yeah, that's not good either. I'm all for having alternative investments if you want to buy maybe a baseball card that has some value, but gambling on cards, yeah, just as bad as gambling on sports. You got to stop.
I'm not angry at that. That's not something to be angry about. I'm upset that you went back to it. I am upset that so much money went out. Yeah, I know, but that's all it starts, man. You spent $11,000 last year at 18. Yeah. At 18 on gambling, doing it now. I mean, it's just like, I don't want you to head down that path.
Now than later,
It scares. No, I think don't do it now and don't do it later is what I think. And I think also, if there are addictive tendencies and you recognize it, make sure you're doing like a group thing or therapy.
A group thing. I'm not about to. I don't.
Why? What? What's wrong with that?
I don't know. I kind of like to keep my things to myself in terms of that. Because
but does that always work though? I would say potentially not, because you just went.
I'd say 9 times out of 10.
Because you just spent $150 out there. I'd say maybe not.
So yeah, this guy lost $11,000 at 18 years old gambling, and that might not seem like a lot of money. I mean, it is. It is a lot of money for an 18-year-old, but in the grand scheme of life, 11,000. You can recover from that. It's not life-changing. But the problem is, if you're starting to gamble at 18, guess what? Your brain is not fully developed yet, and you are screwing over your dopamine system, right? You're getting these quick wins from gambling, and then you're losing it all, but you're getting those quick wins, and you're training your brain to go for that, to do that again. And that's how you get addicted to gambling, and really to anything for that matter. But in this case, we're talking about gambling. And yeah, starting at 18, that is when you're going to build your habits. And if you start a bad habit at 18, it's going to be hard to kick it, especially if you keep that habit throughout your 20s. Man, it's going to be hard to kick it. So he already lost $11,000 at 18 years old. I'm scared to see how much he will lose if he continues to gamble into his 20s. I really hope he stops.
My demons was gambling.
And that's a mother
I don't know if you've ever heard this. I think that's the worst addiction out there.
Yeah.
Do you know why?
Why?
It's the only one you can win in.
It's fucking true though, bro.
It's the only
That's
one.
fucking,
It's
I've never heard that.
Yo, think about it, right? It's the
Yeah.
only one where if I hit the roulette table right now,
Yeah.
there is a chance I could take them for a couple $1,000s. And then I'm like, oh shit, I got my rent, I got my bills, I could go buy sneak, I could do all this shit. But then there's also I could hit that table and lose everything. And then I hit the ATM and I lose everything. But it's the only one where you've seen a positive out of it. For a lot of people, financial is like the biggest indicator for people's happiness and their stresses. Like, bro, I used to have my own demons with like mental health stuff and being depressed and all that. And man, I'm not exactly balling out of control. Like I still have to budget my money, but now that I am making money, like, I don't have those problems anymore.
1000%, guys. And I've never heard of somebody say that. That makes a lot of sense. It's the only addiction where you actually win sometimes, because yes, when you're gambling, you lose a lot of the time, but you also win sometimes. You win money, and that's what gets people hooked. So when you win a couple $1,000, you're like, oh my God, I can, pay off this debt right here, or maybe buy some new shoes. I got my rent money for the month, like he said, and that gets you hooked. It gets your mind, your brain hooked on that quick win, that quick dopamine release, like we talked about earlier in the video, and that's what keeps you coming back. And I felt a little taste of this when I was 21 and I went to the casino literally for the first time in Philadelphia. I bet $5. Guess what? On I forget what slot machine, but I won $1,200, or was it like $1,500? I forget exactly. Maybe I'll put the video here if I find it. But holy smokes, guys. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to fight that sensation when you win. Luckily, I don't have an addictive gambling personality, but I could see people that were in my situation there where they won, $1,500 off of a $5 bet. I can see people getting addicted to gambling. Thankfully, I didn't, but I know some people might in that scenario.
Never gamble on sports again. I'm Rob, and I'm a recovering gambling addict. I grew up watching Phillies games, Sixers games, and Eagles games, always surrounded by sports, no matter what event it was. I mean, look at me. This haircut's probably Dylan Sprouse's fault. But so when I turned 18 and I found out about daily fantasy sports, I was hooked. I mean, you're telling me I could make money watching the sports that I'm already watching and know so much about just by knowing about them? It sounds too good to be true, because it was too good to be true. I developed a crippling gambling addiction from when I was 18 until I was 24 and finally got myself clean. I thought that if I just kept practicing, studying, and learning, using control, learning the lines, using bankroll management, that I would figure it all out and make money gambling. But the truth is, you cannot predict what's going to happen in a game that has nothing to do with yourself. It's out of your control. Now, we're going to get a lot of people who are offended by what I had to say just then, and that's okay. You will lose money if you keep gambling. You don't have to take my word for it. You can find out on your own. But if you're looking to get some help, looking to recover from a gambling problem, then come and check out my account.
So like this guy, I also, grew up watching Phillies games, Sixers games, Eagles games. I guess we're probably from the same area. I live in New Jersey. A bunch of people around here are fans of the Phillies, Eagles, Sixers. But yeah, he got addicted right at 18 with daily fantasy football or daily fantasy sports, whatever. And that's the thing, these companies market to kids that love sports, that watch sports anyway, and if they have that addictive gambling tendency, boom, instant customer for these companies like FanDuel, DraftKings, right? So that's the main problem I have with these companies, right? I understand if you're an adult, go ahead, gamble, whatever. But a lot of these, even if they are adults, a lot of these kids in their early 20s, teens, they're very impressionable, right? And all of these companies, they advertise to these kids to get them hooked on gambling. at a very young age, right? And there's even other companies that are overseas, whatever, that are getting kids to gamble even when they're under the legal age limit. It's freaking insane. And that is how you make a lifelong customer, if you will, right? You get them hooked at a young age, and then they can't stop for their whole life. It's like cigarettes, right? Back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, before that, whatever, kids would smoke from 10 years old, 12 years old, 16 years old, 18 years old, and a lot of them smoked their entire lives. You got a lifelong customer there. It's the same thing here with these gambling companies, right? It's insane.
I know that I try and be upbeat on these videos and try to inform, but even today I've lost everything I've put down. Every wage. Sorry, I can't even get my words. Every amount that the wages I've got in this job, I've already lost them, and it's not even like 5 days into getting the amount that I needed, and now I don't know what to do because I've got still bills to pay, and it just gets me every time. And I've had so good helpful comments and such, so I've got to try through it, but I'm just here to say it's never easy.
Man, that is sad. I'm assuming that guy just gambled away his entire checking account, or maybe all the money he made from his job in the last week, whatever. And that's the sad reality, you know. People that can't stop themselves from gambling, they take the money they make from their job and they're like, oh, I'm gonna flip this, make this into more money. Hopefully I can then pay off all these other bills, whatever justification they have in their mind. And then when you lose that money you just worked days for at your job, when you lose it all, you're just sitting there in a pile of guilt. You might sell other assets you have to go gamble even more, which then brings more guilt, more shame, and it's just a never-ending cycle. So guys, especially if you're young, don't gamble. Stop gambling. Put your money in something that actually grows over time, the stock market. Save up for real estate. Put your money elsewhere, in a savings account even. Anything is better than gambling. What do you guys think? Make sure to subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.